I was at a barbecue last summer, and I'm talking to my neighbor, Steve. Steve's 68 years old, retired for about 5 years now, and I'm asking him how retirement's going, expecting the usual, "Oh, it's nice, we're getting by," kind of response. Instead, this guy looks at me and says, "Honestly, Matt, I'm doing way better now than I was when I was working." And I'm standing there with a burger in my hand like, wait, what? How does that even work? So Steve starts explaining it to me, and I'm thinking, this has got to be a one-off situation, right? Maybe he won the lottery or something. But then I started researching this, and guess what? It's actually pretty common. There are people all over the country who stop working, stop earning paychecks, and somehow their bank accounts just keep growing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Matt, that makes zero sense. You stop working, you stop getting a paycheck, how in the world do you get richer? And look, I thought the exact same thing until I started digging into the data and talking to actual retirees who are watching their net worth climb while they're out here playing golf on a Tuesday afternoon. So stick around because we're going to break down exactly why this happens. And honestly, some of these reasons are going to blow your mind. Reason 1, the tax situation completely changes. When you're working, Uncle Sam is taking a massive bite out of every single paycheck. You've got federal income tax, state income tax, Social Security, Medicare, all of it just gone before the money even hits your bank account. And depending on where you live and how much you make, you could be losing 30, 40, even 50% of your income to taxes. But here's the thing. When you retire, your taxable income usually drops significantly. You're no longer earning that big salary. Instead, you might be pulling from a mix of Social Security, retirement accounts, maybe some rental income, whatever. And because of how the tax brackets work, you're often paying way less in taxes overall. Let me give you a quick example without getting too deep into the math. Say you were making $100K a year while working. After all your taxes and deductions, you might be taking home like $65, $70K. But in retirement, if you're pulling out, say, $60K from your savings and Social Security combined, you might actually be paying taxes on way less than that. For example, imagine $30,000 comes from Social Security and $30,000 comes from a traditional IRA or 401K. Only part of Social Security is taxable, often about half. So instead of $30,000 being taxed, only $15,000 counts. Now add that to the $30,000 IRA withdrawal. That puts your taxable income at $45,000. Then the standard deduction kicks in, roughly $17,000 if you're over 65. So even though you spent $60,000, you're only paying tax on around $28,000. That's less than half. And if some of that money comes from a Roth account or you're married, the number can drop even further. So suddenly you're keeping way more of your money than you ever did while working. It's like getting a raise just for being old. That's pretty wild when you think about it. Reason 2, your expenses just absolutely crater. Think about all the stuff you're spending money on right now while you're working. Commuting to work every day. That's gas, car maintenance, maybe parking fees or public transit passes. Your work wardrobe, and depending on your job, that could be a serious expense. Lunch during the workday, grabbing coffee on the way in, all those little things that add up. Then you've got the big ones. You're probably done paying your mortgage by the time you retire, or at least you should be. Your kids are grown and out of the house, so you're not paying for their college, their food, their endless list of activities and needs. And let me tell you, kids are expensive, like where did all my money go expensive. And here's something nobody really talks about. You stop spending money on convenience. When you're working full-time, you're time poor, so you pay extra for convenience. You order takeout instead of cooking. You pay someone to mow your lawn. You maybe hire a cleaner. But when you retire, you've got nothing but time. So suddenly you're cooking at home, doing your own yard work, and handling all those little tasks yourself. Is it glamorous? No. But does it save you thousands of dollars a year? Absolutely. Reason 3, compound interest becomes your best friend. By the time you retire, compound interest has been working for you for decades, and it's finally paying off big time. So let me explain this. When you're young and you start saving for retirement, compound interest feels kind of disappointing, honestly. You put in money, it grows a little bit, and you're like, cool, I made $50 this month. It doesn't feel like it's doing much. But here's the secret about compound interest. It's exponential, not linear. That means the growth accelerates over time. The first 20 years of saving, that's when you're doing most of the heavy lifting, contributing money from your paychecks. But the last 10 or 15 years before retirement, that's when your money is doing most of the work. I've seen portfolios where someone contributed maybe $300K of their own money over their career, but by the time they retired, that portfolio was worth over $1 million. The rest was all compound growth, dividends, interest, capital gains, all of it just snowballing. And here's the crazy part. That compound growth doesn't stop when you retire. As long as you're not withdrawing everything at once, which you shouldn't be, your remaining investments keep growing. So even while you're pulling money out to live on, your portfolio might still be getting bigger. It's like having a goose that lays golden eggs, and you're only taking a few eggs at a time while the goose keeps laying more. Eventually, you've got more eggs than you started with, even though you've been eating some along the way. Reason 4, Social Security is more valuable than people think. I know. Everyone likes to trash Social Security. It's bankrupt, it won't be there for me, I'm never going to see that money. But here's the reality. It's still there, it's still paying out, and for most retirees, it covers a significant chunk of their basic expenses. The average Social Security check right now is somewhere around $1,800 a month. If you're married, you're probably looking at close to $3,000 a month combined. And here's the key. That's guaranteed income for life. You can't outlive it. Think about what that means for your investments. If Social Security is covering your basic living expenses, you don't need to withdraw as much from your retirement accounts. And if you're not withdrawing as much, that means more money stays invested, continuing to grow. So in a weird way, Social Security acts like a protective buffer around your investment portfolio. It lets your assets keep compounding instead of getting depleted. And over time, that can result in your net worth actually increasing, even though you're technically retired and not working anymore. Plus, Social Security comes with inflation adjustments, so as the cost of living goes up, your benefit goes up too. Try getting that from your old employer. Reason 5, healthcare costs stabilize with Medicare. Now, I know healthcare is expensive in America. Trust me, we all know. But here's something interesting. Before you turn 65, if you're not getting insurance through an employer anymore, you're paying for private health insurance, and that can be absolutely brutal. We're talking potentially thousands of dollars a month for a couple in their early 60s. But once you hit 65 and Medicare kicks in, your premiums drop dramatically. Yeah, Medicare isn't free, and you might want to get a supplement plan, but overall, it's way cheaper than private insurance for most people. I talked to a couple who retired at 62, and they told me they were paying almost $2,000 a month for health insurance through the marketplace. But the day they both turned 65 and switched to Medicare, their healthcare costs dropped to like $400 a month. That's an extra $1,600 a month that they can now stay in their pocket or keep growing in their investments. So for a lot of people, that 3-year gap between retirement and Medicare eligibility is actually the most expensive time healthcare-wise. But once Medicare kicks in, it's like a weight gets lifted, and suddenly your budget has way more breathing room. Reason 6. People downsize and unlock equity. So here's the scenario. You've been living in a big house for 30 years. You raised your kids there, you paid off the mortgage, and now it's worth a lot of money because real estate has appreciated over time. But now it's just you and your spouse, and you don't need all that space. So what do? You sell the house, pocket the gains, which, by the way, are mostly tax-free thanks to the capital gains exclusion on primary residences, and then you buy or rent something smaller and cheaper. Let's say you sell your house for $500K and buy a condo for $250K. Boom! You just added $250K to your liquid net worth. And if that new place has lower property taxes, lower utilities, and lower maintenance costs, you're also reducing your ongoing expenses. I've seen people do this and end up with an extra couple $100,000 sitting in their investment accounts, still growing, and they're living in a place that's easier to maintain with lower costs. It's like getting paid to downsize. Now, not everyone does this. Some people are emotionally attached to their homes, and I get that. But for those who are willing to downsize, it can be a massive wealth accelerator in retirement. Reason 7. Side hustles and part-time work. A lot of retirees end up doing some kind of side hustle or part-time work, not because they have to, but because they want to. Retirement doesn't mean you sit in a rocking chair and do nothing for 30 years. Most people would go insane doing that. So a lot of retirees end up finding something they enjoy doing that also brings in a little extra cash. Maybe they consult in their old industry a few hours a week. Maybe they start a small online business. Maybe they do some freelance work or turn a hobby into a side income. The point is, they're bringing in money, but it's on their terms. No boss, no commute, no stress. And here's the beautiful part. They don't need that money to live on. Their retirement savings and Social Security are already covering their expenses. So this extra income, it's all gravy. It goes straight into savings or investments, making them even wealthier. Reason 8, inheritance and windfalls. And finally, a lot of people receive inheritances or other financial windfalls during their retirement years. This one's a bit more variable because it depends on your family situation, but statistically, people tend to inherit money from their parents during their 60s and 70s. And depending on the size of that inheritance, it can significantly boost your net worth. Even if it's not a massive inheritance, it's still found money that you weren't counting on when you did your retirement planning, so it goes straight into your assets, making you wealthier than you projected. And beyond inheritances, retirees sometimes benefit from other windfalls. Maybe they finally cash out some old stock options, or they sell a rental property they've held for decades, or they settle an insurance claim. These unexpected financial events tend to pop up more often in retirement, and they all contribute to increasing wealth. Now, before we wrap up, I need to give you the reality check. Not everyone gets richer in retirement. In fact, there are still plenty of people who still struggle financially after they stop working. Everything I've talked about today assumes a few things: that you saved adequately during your working years, that you're not carrying a bunch of debt into retirement, that you're living within your means, and that you're being smart about your withdrawals and expenses. If you didn't save enough, or if you're withdrawing too much too fast, or if you're still paying off credit cards and car loans in retirement, then yeah, you're probably not going to see your wealth increase. You might see it decrease, actually. But for people who did the work earlier in life, who saved consistently, who avoided major financial mistakes, who planned ahead, retirement can actually be a period of continued wealth accumulation. And that's pretty cool when you think about it. It's not magic, and it doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of decades of smart financial decisions finally paying off. But the key insight here is that retirement isn't necessarily this scary financial cliff where your wealth evaporates. If you play your cards right, it can actually be a time when your net worth keeps growing, even without a paycheck. And look, if you're years away from retirement, this should be encouraging news. It means that if you're saving now, if you're investing consistently, if you're keeping your expenses under control, there's a good chance that you're going to be just fine. More than fine, actually. Are you surprised that people can get richer in retirement? Do you know anyone this has happened to? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.